Hi everyone, welcome to episode.
Two.
Is it episode
Three?
2? I don't know, episode 3.
This is the second time we've
Welcome
said
to our
one.
next episode of Chaiyya Chats. Good one. Today we have Sam Muchin from St. Thomas Valley Valley in Los Angeles. My name is Julie. You guys remember?
I'm Amanda. And I'm Dina.
And today we're gonna talk about what are the next steps after getting your spiritual father and that journey, that next journey that we take towards like deepening our spiritual life. So I think my next question is to you, which is like, where do we start from here? I got my spiritual father. What's next?
Okay. I think that getting the spiritual father part of it is already like you're already multiple steps in. Right? Because to get to that place, there's already like a relationship that's established, there's a rapport, a trust that's established. You've probably already then had your first confession with them, right? What's really nice there's positives and negatives here, is that more often than not, especially in a parish setting, your priest or your spiritual father knows you at multiple levels, meaning it's not just on Sunday that they see you, but they also know your parents. They know your siblings. They know your situation in life. They know your career aspirations, or who you're married to. Like if you're at different stages of life, right? Like they know your kids, or they know your husband or wife. So the next step, honestly, is kind of continuing this work of relationship building. I think.
I feel like when it comes to being a part of this community, there's a lot of things that shy us away from building a deeper relationship, especially being vulnerable.
And if you factor in the fact that like you do know, or our spiritual father does know our extended family, and they do know like everything about us and whoever we talk to, it does definitely add a factor of, am I scared to be vulnerable with a spiritual father? How do I build that trust?
Yeah, I think there's fear of judgment when it comes to that. Not only because an Achin is listening to our like most vulnerable moments, it's the fear of like everybody else knowing it also. And I know like during confession, like that is just between me, you, and God. But like I feel like it's not like Achin is the one who's saying all these things, but like rumors and like talk is always in our community kind of thing. So
yeah, it's a huge part of just like our culture and our community. So it's really hard to forget.
Yeah. And so I feel like that shies me away from coming to church.
Sure. I mean, for us, because we're so close, and because especially, I mean, when you go to the larger parishes, it's a little bit different, because I feel like once you cross over like 100, 120 members in a parish, you just have a lot of little pockets of like people, right? Because the church is just too large, right? So it's like you have a group here, you have a group here, you have a group here. It's not really intended to be anything malicious or negative, but it's almost like you have to find your own like community within this larger community, right? A sub community. But like for you guys at St. Mary's, you have 20 to 30 to 40 families, right? At most. Here at St. Thomas, we have like between, depending on how you're counting, 90 to 100 and something families, right? Like we're smaller parishes in that regard. So everybody kind of does know everybody. The hardest part, I think, in that sense, is when you're a family, a lot of people feel very empowered to weigh in on things that maybe they don't need to weigh in on, right? Talk about things that they don't have perspective of, give an opinion on something that they don't have the full picture of. And that could be really problematic, because when you see a child grow up, you don't know what that child is dealing with, what the inner turmoil is, right? When you see an adolescent, especially within a normal household, the struggles that happen between a parent and their child, right? Like that point of like trying to establish independence and your knowledge of like who you are and all that. Like there are going to be growing pains. Now when you magnify that at a church level, And instead of your own mom and your dad who are like struggling with your adolescence and your rebelliousness and you're finding your own way, now you have like 50 voices who are all weighing in on like, you shouldn't do that, you should do this, you should. It's a very, like, it's a really challenging environment. Now, if you're in the category of like, I got everything together, fine. But how many adolescents have everything together?
And just keeping everybody updated on all the stuff that you're doing. Oh my gosh. The ummages and uppages even then coming up to you.
Yeah. And sometimes, like, when they come up to you and ask these questions, like, how are you doing? Or how is this person doing in your life? It seems like sometimes it's intentional when they're asking it. Like, they know something and they're just trying to pride it out.
Yeah, and these conversations are always something like even personally, having to deal with the community aspect of church is also what like kind of drives me away from church. Like on a Sunday, thinking about how like, oh, all these aunties and uncles are about to come to me and be like, oh, how's school, how's your job search, how is this all going, like when is this, where are we getting, and I'm like, can I get a break? Like, if at home it's the same thing, and then you come to church and it's the same thing because everybody needs an update. So yeah, it's just definitely difficult just having to constantly have all your information be like, everyone's privy to that information, like everyone has access to it.
Yeah, and so there's as all things, like I feel there's at least two elements that we could talk about. One is like the community being more intentional about what they're asking, why they're asking, what the motivation is, but then also on your end as an individual to become just more resilient to this. And I think these things can happen simultaneously, right? I think in general, I've said this like every parish I've been to, I've done youth ministry throughout this whole region, right? And like I remember just telling people, going, find something else to talk about. Don't ask about career. Don't ask about like how's school going. How are these markers that, see, unfortunately I think culturally those are the things we're most comfortable talking about. Right?
It's like small talk.
It's small talk. It's like everyone knows school is part of this. Everyone knows work is part of this. So it's like that becomes like the low hanging fruit that people who don't know what else to ask, or who, it's the way I put it is like it's the equivalent of like asking someone, how are you doing? Most people don't care how you're doing.
Yeah. I sometimes like
they just want to ask something, right? So it's like, how's school? Like, they don't have anything else to ask. They don't necessarily care, or they do care but they just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So it's just, we have to find better questions.
When you say it like that, sometimes I think of like, sometimes uppages and ummages, they don't really know how to connect with younger individuals. So the best thing they shoot out is like, how's school? Like, when is this happening in your life? Yeah, when is this happening in your life?
Yeah, but I have my own like reverse kind of question when I deal with like elders. So when I meet people for the first time, it's like, where are you from in India? Right? What village? Where? Like, it's like, do I know what else to ask? I don't know. That's like a base level. And the other thing that's a go-to is, oh, how's your health? I don't even know. It's like how are you feeling? It's like those are my verbal ticks when I talk to elders. And I think they have the same thing for us, where it's just like, well, what are you studying, or how's school going? How's work?
Yeah.
So are there like ways when you're approaching a new, is it spiritual child, or
one of your flock?
One of them. Like, are there like ways or words that you use differently to make them more comfortable?
I mean, once you three probably could answer that experientially if I threw it back at you, right?
But then in our relationship, I just don't feel like it was like a one-time thing. No. It was correct. Years of actually like longing to be closer to you, not having that opportunity, and then like just because of distance purely, and then being able to do that later. So like, I think if it takes as much time as we took, it might not be like the way to go. But I do agree that, how would you?
Well, Gina wanted to weigh in.
Oh yeah. I think no, it's okay. I think for me, like, I think we do a version of it when we're talking to Achin. It's more of like when we try and like we like tell him stories about what happens at church, right? And we say it as to him as like a joke for him to like kind of like laugh about or
gain an understanding.
Yeah, again, gain an understanding of what we went through, right? But we say it as a joke, we say it as a story, and then he at once will laugh about it, but then he'll give us an advice of how to be resilient towards those kind of like situations.
Well, just yesterday, your sister was like, she's sitting here off camera, but she was like, Achin, why do you have to turn everything into a lesson?
Because of how deep that conversation with Ian got.
Yeah, because the conversation got so deep yesterday. It was like a random one-off conversation, and it got super deep about like existential things. And I'm like, I don't know why I do that. Like, I don't know how to not do that, you know. And so you're right. Like you share stuff, and it's told in a story method, but then at the same time, well, okay, we can be in the moment, but what are you called to do now?
Exactly.
Right?
Like I feel like we have so many moments in which you're laughing with us and you're joking with us about, and you'll call back to those like moments that we've talked about, but within the time, like I don't know if I'm talking too loud, but within the time, like there are days where you're like, how could you have approached that differently, or how could you have done this differently, or like what's your inner thoughts when you're thinking about the situation or your feelings towards the situation? Because I remember telling you literally this weekend about how I felt during a managing committee meeting, and you made my feelings valid, but then you're like, and like you kind of like said like you were very resilient towards it, but then gave me ways of like understanding how the uncles are thinking and what's their side of it.
Yeah. So I think there's a level of like comfort we get with you once we start being a little bit more vulnerable with our experiences. Yeah. I think it's very important that like if we were, if we had, I think it's something that we had to, I think, build to not have a pride about our own experiences and having to like and keeping it close to ourselves because we're, scared of what other people would think or how they would comment on that, especially, even to you. Like it's not even just like other people in church. Giving you a lot of insight to our life sometimes kind of opens our lives into just being judged by other people and by our spiritual father. But because of that, like I think especially us, I don't know, I can't speak for everybody's experiences, but us being able to be vulnerable with what goes on like in our spiritual lives and our community has really been able to bond us in that way. Like we've been able to be very open with you and also receive a lot of advice in how to tackle those situations.
And so to kind of what both of you are saying, let me also add another layer to this, because I think as with every relationship that I've had, friendship or spiritual child or whatever it may be, there's a process. Like I don't think vulnerability or trust are just one over. It's not like flipping a switch. I think there's various layers of vulnerability. It's like peeling an onion, right? So, for example, and even within the confessional relationship, you guys may or may not have experienced this. You may or may not have also done this, but there will be times where you'll confess something and it'll be a very kind of like glossed over confession where you're like you'll say the sin, but it's like very high level, hoping that we don't delve into it, right? And I will always just follow up and be like, is there anything that you want to like expound on there? You want to like, but I don't dig. I don't, at least I hope you don't think that I'm digging, right? I don't dig. But then what I'll notice is in subsequent confessions, as you realize, okay, you walked away, I didn't judge you. You walked away from that confession. I wasn't like, oh, this is what's wrong with you, and I'm like talking about you, or I'm treating you differently after the confession, right? So then I notice the next confession and the confession after that, all of a sudden you're able to go deeper and deeper into a struggle. And a lot of times it's because this is where the consistency and the relationship matters. Like I don't know anyone I don't know very many people who can just trust right off the bat. I think there's been enough evidence in most of our lives to say that it's probably not a good idea to be immediately vulnerable with everyone and vulnerable with everything to every extent, right? You have to know and trust the relationship and the strength of that. You have to know and trust the character of the person, also where you're at. So it's like, I think confession after confession, you kind of have this affirmation of like, all right, I can actually go further here. But here's the thing, I think it also parallels our relationship with God. Because like I find that when I'm in a tough spot and then I place my trust in God and then I see how God acts, how he works, how he sends the Spirit to provide comfort or grace or strength, then I go, oh, I can keep trusting God. So my relationship with God also is like these like layers that I can go deeper and deeper into this relationship with God, because I see how he's confirming me through little ways and just speaking and continuing to work, and I go, oh, I can trust this. And I think in a human level, that's what the relationship between like your spiritual father and you should be.
I do have, from my aspect of like, like when you're talking about peeling the onion, from my perspective, it's more of, I do confession pretty consistently, like maybe 40, 80. This time was 80, but I'll try to do it like every 40, 50 days. And what I noticed is that the reason why I try to dive deeper and deeper into my confessions, because I know the first time I confessed, it was like, let me just go through all the things that I had done. And then when Achin's like, is there anything I want to talk about? I'm like, the ones that I don't feel as shameful about, I'll talk about. And so it's easier for me to talk about those ones versus when I'm saying the ones. But Achin does have a way of saying like, if I whisper the ones I'm shameful about,
he like brings it out of you. He like draws out.
He's like, why are you shameful about it? Because you sound shameful about it. So why are you shameful about it, right? And then
because your voice drops.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You don't pronounce the words as strongly.
You kind of rush through it.
Gotta rush through it.
Me, like
yeah.
I'll be like
that
I'll be
paragraph
fighting
in particular.
I'll be like, my first will be like fighting with my parents, and the next one will be Achin's like, what was the last one? But yeah, and so
I'm
like,
hard of hearing, so it's not.
So it's not
like,
intentional.
It's not intentional.
You actually didn't hear
it's
it.
both.
I've very bad hearing. So.
And so like, as like, even ones that I'm shameful about, when I bring that up, it's more of me like within the 40 days, why am I still doing this? And I want to get into like a more of a like, how can we break this down? How can we do this? Like, it causes me to be more of like proactive about the sin that I'm doing rather than like dealing with the shame and guilt afterwards. That's what I did it.
Yeah, I like on my end, like I think I really appreciate the freedom that you give us to, like when you ask like, oh, is there something that you're shameful about? Is there something that you want to really expound about? Because for me, everything is usually connected, and so once we start somewhere, and it's not like I'm avoiding something that's shameful or anything, it's just once we're able to start somewhere and I'm able to tell you what's actually been on my mind for the last like month, 3 months, however long it's been since we confessed, we usually get to the shameful parts.
Yeah.
We like, because eventually I look at you and I'm like, yeah. Yeah, you're right. And then at that point, there's nothing to say except just stare off into the distance and be like, oh, the connections are happening right now.
Well, and to that degree, I think that's something that it's interesting. I think I hear confessions in a way where, and for those who probably never gone to confession with me, like it's kind of nerve-wracking, I think, because I'm silent, right?
That makes us nervous.
Yes, like I
don't do well when you're like I'm like, what do you think? What do you think I'm doing?
And
like,
he's asking you the same question.
but I don't. But like I have you go through your entire confession, right? I don't comment. I don't say anything. I don't do. It's like you go through your entire confession, and only at the end will I then like ask you, is there something that was hard to confess? Is there something like what would the top 2 struggles be of your entire confession? But what I've noticed time and time again, and this is where like you guys, not just you three, but like across the board, the level of awareness when you complete your confession, seeing all the connections. So Amanda, exactly what you were saying, like seeing the connections of like, oh man, like yeah, I stopped reading scripture or I stopped praying consistently, and now I notice this temptation, or like you guys start making those connections without me having to say anything. Because once you see the full picture, you yourself are able to kind of go, oh, like I'm not looking at this in isolation anymore. I'm looking at this like, across the tapestry, and all of a sudden you have a much deeper and better awareness of your own spiritual life. You know.
I wanted to bring up once we start realizing that stuff, and we're also growing at the same time. So we're realizing it, and then the outside world is there also. There are times where, even though we realize what we need to do to deepen our spiritual relationship with God, and the answers are right there, but the secular world is also calling my name. There are times where, like, I want both of my feet in
the college bubble.
That college experience, where I want the college experience, but I also want to be a part of church. I want to have that confessional relationship. I want to, and that's when, like, I'm trying to juggle both. But once that discipline is gone, because you want to, feed into your secular life and that kind of lifestyle, you just, like, this kind of, like, it dwindles so quickly. Yeah. It's insane.
And like, there's something that we usually talk about in our professions, is like traumatic versus habitual sin. Like, I think it's really easy when you're in college to fall into that habitual sin, right? Yeah. Like, everything seems like, okay, like, you can have both if you, or not, you can have both, but it seems like you can have both if you go to confession regularly, but then you kind of just keep confessing the same sins that you keep doing when you go back to school Monday through Friday. Yeah. That sort of, like, mentality, like, is just really hard to balance, I think.
Well, and this is also where, like, this idea of awareness really matters to me. If I think that I can successfully live a compartment of my life without God, and I can have this, and then I can also have this, right? Like, I can have spiritual progress, I can have peace, I can have freedom, I can have joy, but then I can also have, like, all the things the world offers. You can maintain that for a little bit of time. Like, everyone can maintain that for a little bit of time, right? That balance. But eventually, it's gonna all fall apart. Because when push comes to shove, and this is why, Christ says you cannot serve two masters. Like, when push comes to shove, you will always be in a position at some point where you have to choose what it is that you want. And God willing, you will not have become so accustomed to the things of the world that you can't have the things of God.
So when I mentioned that when we feed into the secular lifestyle of whatever we do, and our spiritual life kind of dwindles, what are things that we can do to come back? Because, like, the dwindling part, I think the first thing that gets cut off is going to church. Sure. For me specifically, I think I shy away from going to church because of the shame that I feel. I start, like, not attending weekly Bible studies, hanging out with my church friends, because then it, like I said, it all, like you guys said, sorry, it's all connected. Like, once we start talking about something, especially when you start talking to your friends at church, and we're always talking about, like, our spiritual life, or we're talking about how we're doing spiritually, and or in life in general, it always somehow comes out.
Yeah. It gives life to a problem that you didn't want to deal with.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
sorry, I can just say this personally because I had like I confessed really recently, so, like, everything is in my head what Acha said to me, right? Because I did, like, no matter how much you confess, there's always something that you're shameful about, right? And so, like, it stops you from going. Like, I was called out recently for not going to the weekly Bible studies.
By who?
Name drop.
Yeah.
Oh. So this is evidence that he forgets all the confessions.
No, not in confession. He called me out here because I was like, "Oh, Bessie Etching goes to Focus," and he's like, "Yeah, you don't go to Focus." And so, like, I was called out. But the reason is because, yes, when I feel more shameful about something, I do end up isolating myself from certain activities because, like, sometimes, you have that inward, like,
I. Sometimes I.
Oh, sometimes I have that inward like feeling of guilt and shame where do I deserve, like can I, I'm sorry, like not deserve, but it's like,
are you worthy of like those connections?
Yeah, like
do I belong there?
Oh yeah.
Is that it?
I'm sorry.
Like, do I belong there?
Yeah, do I belong there? That kind of understanding. And when I confessed to you what I was like most shameful about, it felt like Achin's first idea, like understanding or like thought was like, did you turn to God after? Like the second that you did it, did you pray? And I'm like, yes. I like that was the one thing I did differently from before.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when I do what I think, like when I do the sinful act, I turn to prayer. And I was like, that's different than what like before. Like I would like more isolate myself, like even like isolate myself even more than I usually do. But now I still turn to Christ. And I think that it's hard, like bringing up your your question about balancing both. It's hard to balance both if you're constantly thinking about the other side, if that makes sense. You're constantly thinking about, I want to do that, I want to do this, right? But but there's going to be certain times where you're going to have to like where I'm going to have to like choose Christ over someone else or over something else, right? And we do that almost all. I think we have to make that choice as like Orthodox Christians, because there's going to be like what is it, weekly kurbanas, or there's going to be Bible studies that you're going to have to miss out on your friends' things or your friends' birthday parties or like college parties or something, and you make that choice. And it's like wherever you are in your spiritual journey, you'll decide to make that choice or not, in my opinion.
Yeah. As you decide to choose, like you said, going to those weekly kurbanas or deciding to fast, like especially during the Great Fast.
Oh yeah, birthday parties during the fast.
Yeah, like during the Great Fast, especially when in college, everything goes down in college during the Great Fast, and so
not for everyone,
not for us, not for me specifically.
She's out of college anymore.
Not for me, but no, that like it kind of isolates you. Like it's either you get isolated from your spiritual life or you get isolated from your secular life.
Yeah. And it's like we have to be honest about that too. Like I think the one thing that you're talking about coming to like the weekly Bible studies and do we belong here, that kind of stuff. It's really I think it's important that we realize that everyone's struggling with something.
Yes.
The imposter syndrome in spirituality is actually really real.
Yep.
Because you can look at anybody and be like, yeah, that person goes to church. That person definitely prays more than I do. That person is definitely connected with God, and I'm not. Like, I shouldn't be in the same discussion as that person.
Yeah.
Well, so can I share that also from like an interpersonal relationship kind of thing? Not to get necessarily too in the weeds with like the dynamics of like this area, but like when we have, especially once again, like between St. Mary, St. Thomas, right? Like I love all of you, right? And I pretty much hear your confessions on both sides, right? And so there's sometimes where like you have interactions with each other within the community, within the other parish, my kids here, with with you guys, like, and there's like sometimes these points where you're like, oh, like they're this way or they're that way, or things are awkward now, or things are like they're being judged or we're being judged or all these things, right? Whereas when I'm seeing all of you, it's like I have this genuine love for all of you, but I'm also seeing it from the side of everyone is struggling in their own right. Mm-hmm. And the sooner and quicker you can like look at your peers and realize that they're also struggling with something, the greater room and capacity you have now for compassion and understanding and relationship building.
Yeah.
But like you said, when that temptation comes in where you go, oh, they're here, I'm an imposter, do I belong? Like, do they not like me? Are they judging me? Or, like all that, it destroys relationships. So coming back to a theme that you guys mentioned already, like one of the devil's great works is to isolate us. Right? I think I tell you guys all the time. He makes us isolated and he renders us passive. Right? Those are the two things. Mm-hmm. And if he's able to get you there, you're alone, and now you don't have the dynamism, the spirit, the power to actually do anything. Now you become very passive in everything.
Is it kind of like spiritual depression?
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's a dangerous thing. And that's why Satan is able to work, like why he manipulates us into shame. And then why it breaks down our relationships with others. Where in reality, oftentimes people have nothing against us. People don't have any opinion against us. Or people don't know you well enough to like to have an opinion. Right? Yeah. But it's about how I perceive it now that I feel like I'm isolated, now that I feel like I'm shameful and like that I'm not worthy of companionship or friendship. All of a sudden everything feeds into that narrative.
So how do you get over that? Is it some kind of like you're like shake it off and just like be present?
That resilience you started about earlier.
Resilience, yeah. I mean,
is that like resilience coincide with like getting rid of your pride?
I mean, everything's gonna revolve around pride.
Yeah.
Everything at the end of the day will revolve. Everything. It's so.
Sounds like a lot of our confessions are.
Yeah. It's so great though, because I can't remember a countless number of confessions where whether it's you guys or whether it's like some of the other guys and girls, and it's like I'd be like, so what's behind that? So what do you think is causing that?
It's the worst when you don't give us the answer.
And I never give you. I rarely.
It's like fill in the blank.
And as I've got,
all the above is also
as I've gotten older, I've been tempted to say more, but I still resist. But the other part of it that you guys don't understand is that I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm
like, make it everybody.
No, it's not.
No,
it's not that. It's not that. See, that's exactly. It's not a fake until you make it, but it's also not like I'm a clairvoyant like Elder Ephraim of Arizona, like I just like it's. I do what I've been trained to do, and throughout this whole process, I'm just like God, give me something, like may this be a blessing for you, like at some point, right? So there's sometimes it's so interesting with, like I think I've been able to hear, I think no experience in my life has led me to trust God more than the confessional experience. I'm saying for that, me as a priest, like as an individual, I think that I've had moments where God has confirmed his guidance and his path for me for sure. But it's sometimes in these confessions where I go, logically, I have no idea what's going on. But that's why you'll see me like, what am I doing? I'm just doing the Jesus prayer while you're right? I got my prayer rope and just like, Lord, just
like, can you give us the answer? Give me a minute.
Yeah, and that's
the cross. You can hear the cross going faster.
That's right. That's exactly it. Either I have my prayer rope or I have my cross and I'm just doing crosses, right? It's like, and it's one or the other, and it's just, and sometimes like what'll come up in a confession with you will never have come up before. And this is where I've learned how to trust God a lot more in hearing confessions, because I don't think it has anything to do with my rational ability to process a problem.
That kind of gives us like, it's kind of eye-opening when you say that, because now that kind of like increases my trust in God when you say that. Because at first I'm just, Achin is saying this because he is wise,
No.
He's wise. But no, apparently not. No. It's because obviously, like you said, like you're praying for us, and through your prayers, like you're getting the answers from God, which is something that like now we know that like God knows what we need. Because like almost every confession, it's not the same. Even though the sins and the passions and what we're confessing can be repetitive, the lesson that we're getting from it or the treatment that we're getting from it is never the same.
Yeah. And the whole part about like the logic and the rationale not really being behind it, I think I struggle with that a lot personally, having to say something and be like, Achin, like I'm someone who needs like that process to like resolve certain things. I need that resolution. I need a concrete like solution. And a lot of the times like I'll come to you with my problems and not like you can't give me that. And I'm trying to be logical and I'm trying to rationalize every single thing that's going on in my life. Whereas like, the cross is going back faster and faster. And then you end up with, just pray, man. And I'm like, but like,
I need more.
Yeah. And so but that's what increases our trust in God, right? Like, is knowing that there is no rationale, there is no logical solution. It's just, getting to the point where we can just be like, let me just offer that part up to God. Let me offer all of my anxiety about resolving this solution, this conflict, up to God.
To God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why that popped when you said that. That popped into my head about like, I don't know who you said it did, but it was like one of the, I don't know if it's a monk, but he was like, "Oh, you're a, what is it? You're a thief.
You're a thief.
Yes,
You're
I
a
am.
fornicator.
Yeah, yes,
yeah.
I am." And he said, "Yes, I am" to everything except you're a heretic, right? And he was like, "No, I'm not," right? And it's that, like, sorry, minimizing your pride, right? And like being humble to the fact that you're okay with saying everything because at one point, like you've done it, or like I've done it, right? Like I've done all these sins, but one thing like he said he didn't do it was heresy, right? And so that, like, having that pride is so hard. Like having someone say something to you that you think that you have not done, right? And fighting that, being defensive about that, right? Instead of just saying, okay, I won't do that again.
Yeah.
That's such a hard thing. I don't know how someone can do that. So it's like, I know like they've done like, like monks and like are like, what is it? The fathers have done that, but when it comes to myself, I find it incredibly hard because it's like I didn't do it, like it's like me creating that, like I don't want them to have the perspective of me.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's just like,
well, I mean, and that's why, like, at the end of the day, when you guys, and it's so fascinating, right? Watching how it eventually comes down to pride. Like almost everything, one way or another, it's going to come back to pride. And watching you guys piece it together is magnificent. Like it's marvelous. Like when you,
while we're crying on
when
the
you-
inside, there's
crying
tears.
out
There's
behind
tears
this.
externally and internally.
but it's beautiful for you because here's the thing: all the sins you confess, right? We like I will be like, this is the worst thing, and this is the worst thing, and like in my head, I'm like, this is my worst thing, and that's my worst thing. I am so ashamed of this. And then we even culturally, right? We look at like, oh, that person's doing this person, like I said, the judgment in our own culture, right? In our community, this person's doing that. But I promise you, there is no sin that harms and hurts us, and hurts our community, and hurts our families, and hurts our own selves more than pride. Pride is the thing that separates us all. Like it is the one thing that will destroy us.
And it really like belittles yourself.
Well, because you know why? Fundamentally, your pride or your esteem, your self-esteem, your esteem of yourself will never match how God views you. Okay. And if I could just make one last comment, just because we did, you did ask a question about when isolated, like what's the treatment for that, right? And when we were with the MGO, the Lenten retreat last spring, we went to the Coptic monastery, St. Anthony's here, and we met with one of the Abunas, and Abuna Thomas was actually a New Yorker who is now at the monastery here. He was talking about this to the kids, and it was so clear the way he put it. And he said, almost always, the antidote or the treatment for an illness spiritually is the opposite of it. So if isolation is where you're at, the treatment of it would be connectivity. It's to connect.
So pride.
So pride, it's humility, right? So take that like whatever that humble path is. So in every relation, think about this: every fight you're having, every body you're holding everything against, like if your refusal to talk to them is rooted in your pride, then what do you have to do? Go talk to them, right? If your issue is I will not forgive this person because of how they hurt me, well, the treatment is now forgive, right? And this is why, I mean, I don't know if, like I said, I don't remember confessions, so I have no idea if this has come up in our confessions or not. But there are people in our life at times that have hurt us so much, or that have harmed us so much, or that have caused so much trauma that it's very hard to even have a good thought about them, let alone to like pray for them. And what I say in those instances is put them on your enemy list. Because what does Christ say about our enemies? that we must love our enemies, right? We must love our enemies as ourselves. So that could be your father, your mother. That could be a brother. That could be a friend. That could be whoever's on that enemy list. Put them on your enemy list. But then what does God require of us for our enemies? To love them. And if I'm not even able to do that, let me pray to God that I can care about them at least. Right? If I can't genuinely pray for them, don't pretend. Like don't be fake before God. Don't be
Yeah, I was about to
disingenuous.
say, I was like, I can pray for somebody, but sometimes it won't be the most genuine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
don't be, what I'm saying is don't be disingenuous. So then at that point, just pray that God helps you care about the person. Help me care about the soul of this person. Start there. And that way you're not praying something disingenuous. You're asking God for help to care about somebody that you probably don't have any logical reason to care about if it wasn't for your faith. All right, with that I think, unless you guys have a follow-up.
No.
Okay.
Cut?
I think we can cut that.